So recently, the Department of Justice released thousands of files on the 19th of December. These files are absolutely monumental. They are nothing like any of the other files. The other files are very, very important and cover a lot of information, but these have so much more that we have never seen before. We even have Jeffrey Epstein's hard drives that have been released. We're going to show these to y'all. Before we go into the files, we first must give a very brief explanation of Jeffrey Epstein. Jeffrey Epstein wasn't some nobody hiding on the edges of society. For years, he was one of the most well-connected financiers in New York, moving comfortably among politicians, billionaires, academics, and celebrities, until everything fell apart. Epstein built a reputation as an elite financier in Manhattan, presenting himself as a financial genius who managed money for the ultra-wealthy and the rich. He owned a lavish townhouse in the Upper East Side, private jets, and multiple properties all around the world. He had his property in New York, he had a property in Miami, and he had a ranch in New Mexico. He wasn't just rich, he was connected. Epstein associated with powerful business leaders, politicians, royalty, and major figures in science and academia. He was notably friends with Donald Trump, Bill Clinton, Prince Andrew, and many more. At the height of his public image, Epstein was even featured in magazines and once named Bachelor of the Month. He was known as a playboy and portrayed as a mysterious, charming billionaire with an enviable social life and many connections. But behind the wealth and influence was something far, far darker. In 2008, Epstein pleaded guilty in Florida for soliciting a minor for prostitution. Despite his status and connections, the evidence was overwhelming. The man once welcomed into elite circles was now exposed for exploiting his power, wealth, and influence to abuse vulnerable victims. These victims were children. They were 14 through 16, and Epstein got off on a plea deal and only served a year and a half in jail and got a year of house arrest. And during this house arrest, he was traveling all over the world, back and forth to New York, and he was certainly not on house arrest. Jeffrey Epstein's story isn't just about money or crime. It's about how someone can rise to the highest heights of society and still leave behind one of the most disturbing scandals in modern history. So we're first going to cover the FBI files, and then after that we're going to cover the 20,000 files that the House of Representatives released just a few weeks ago in late November. So this took so much work and research to go through. This was about 25,000 files. No, 26,000 files. So we will not be able to cover everything, and we're going to be bound to miss some things. So we here at the Great Buckified YouTube channel implore you to do your own research. All right, let's jump into this shit. So we're going to start with part 1 of the FBI files. So we start off with a request for a case to be open. Jeffrey Epstein's name is there, but the other suspects are hidden. We start off with an interview with his chef/butler. It's basically like his personal assistant, butler, I guess. His name is Mr. Alfredo Rodriguez. After this, we have a newspaper talking about him being arrested. It says he was associates with Trump, Bill Clinton, and Kevin Spacey. Now we also have a newspaper about him giving sexual massages to teenagers. Lawyers say that the teenagers are lying. We also have a polygraph showing that he didn't know the teens' ages, but remember, polygraphs are notoriously not admissible in court. Next right here we have a newspaper, and this is saying, as you can see, prosecutors did not pursue charges against Mr. Epstein, reflecting the age of the victims because they assumed a jury would view the girls not as victims, but as promiscuous, untrustworthy, willing participants. Go ahead and just soak that in. They would not prosecute them because they thought the jury would not view them as victims. These are 14-year-old through 16-year-old girls. These are children. This is the most out-of-touch, brain-dead take I have ever seen. Let's go ahead and move on before I have a conniption fit. So Epstein denies that he knows the girl's age, but police find evidence that indicates he did. Let's go ahead and focus on this right here. There was a time Jeffrey Epstein had to wait for his massage because the girl he wanted was still in class. Just think about that. That is disgusting. That is vile. That is abhorrent, and it makes me sick just thinking about it. We have a note in our files that just says Nathan felt so physically ill just reading this. This is disgusting. Although no charges of witness tampering have been filed, the parents of at least one of the teenage victims complained to police of being followed and intimidated by 2 men. We have here another newspaper saying that jurors often believe adults over kids. Oh my gosh, I just don't even know where to start with this. After this, we have another one saying that, this is his attorney saying that the police gave media a distorted view. I don't know what that means. He was touching kids. I don't think you can really distort that. I think you're just touching kids. Now we're going to move on to part 2. Here, we're going to add to our counter of deleted documents. Part 2 is just all court documents. Public record, readily available, no use for this. Part 3 tells us that FBI Miami is investigating Epstein. Every other suspect under investigation is redacted. Also, the entire interview with his butler is completely redacted. Here's another newspaper just saying that the FBI says that they still have a pending case. I just want to cover this, and I also just want to say this happened in 2007, 2008, and they're still redacting this. There has to be a reason they are still redacting this. This was the early 2000s. So, police say that Epstein paid girls as young as 14 for erotic massages. He brought a 14-year-old to his house with the help of Sarah Kellen Vickers. She's not known as this anymore, but she was a former wife of a NASCAR driver. This is her. She led a 14-year-old girl to a room with a massage table where Jeffrey Epstein was waiting and preyed upon her. There was also a 16-year-old recruited by another Palm Beach County high schooler to come to his massage room where he touched her and pleased himself. While doing so, he paid the girl $200 and the other high schooler $100. This also happened another time. There was another 16-year-old recruited by, as you see here, Haley Robson, who is another victim of his. She's the one on the right. She is a public victim of his, and she was also sued by another victim for being a part of his criminal enterprise. Next, the files show that Jeffrey Epstein was given a plea deal and only had a year and a half of prison. The victims are given letters informing them of non-prosecution agreements between Jeffrey Epstein and the U.S. government. Imagine being a victim of a famous, powerful billionaire. You go to court, you testify, you suffer through this all over again. And then the U.S. government gives you a letter saying that they are not going to prosecute him. That is abhorrent. That is a violation of justice. And that really shows how far we have fallen. Just let that sink in. Billionaire sex offender leaves jail 6 days a week for work. Yeah, he wasn't actually serving a year and a half in jail. He was going wherever he wanted. He was going back home to work. That's not jail. He got off scot-free. I also just have to bring up that Jeffrey Epstein's entire defense was that the victims were basically prostitutes and that the age of consent is lower in other states. This defense was enough for him to get a plea deal. Now we're going to talk about Virginia Roberts. Virginia Roberts was one of the most prominent accusers to come forward during his case. She alleged that he trafficked her into wealthy, powerful individuals while she was a minor. She originally worked at Mar-a-Lago, which is Trump's estate. Her claims became central to the broader investigation into his network and helped expose how his influence and connections allowed abuse to continue for years and years. She was one of the main victims to become public, and she unfortunately took her own life recently. We are not going to comment on what we believe on if she actually took her own life, but we believe it's up to interpretation whether this is true. As we see here on 9/11/08, coincidental date. As we see here on 9/11/08, not '01, case agent advised Ryder that Epstein is currently being prosecuted by the state of Florida and is complying with all conditions of his plea with the state of Florida. Epstein has also provided information to the FBI as agreed upon. Case agent advised that no federal prosecution will occur in this matter as long as Epstein continues to uphold his agreement with the state of Florida. Case agent also advised that no further forfeiture assistance will be required for this case. Case agent is requested to contact Ryder in the event this matter moves forward on a federal level. So yeah, no federal prosecution as we see here. Parts 7 through 11 are all completely deleted. Part 12 is all MySpace info that is completely deleted. Part 13 is completely deleted. Parts 14 through 16 are almost completely redacted and are completely useless. Now at part 17, we're at the meat and potatoes. So these look like investigative notes about Big E, as we'll call him. So right here, it looks like it's saying, went upstairs, blank, stayed downstairs, someone introduced herself, Jeffrey came down in robe, introduced, paid $200, paid $300, more redacted stuff, paid $200, redacted, and told her redacted. Clearly, he's coming down on a robe and paying people to do stuff, and clearly they're redacting to hide things. J.E. said that he knew models. That was the reason he was going to, again, redacted. A friend redacted. Do you want to make $200? Go to million or billion house. We've tried to decipher this. We have no idea what this means. We don't know what million or billion house means, but clearly he's paying somebody money, and we know that he paid children for lewd, indecent acts on himself. Now I just want to mention, we cannot find anything online about this stuff. People online are not talking about this. News sites are not going into the files and researching them. There's not really any discussion going on about what the stuff in the files actually means. We hope to start this discussion. So in the comments down below, talk about what you think this could mean, or just go ahead and help us start this discussion. This says go to, maybe it says beach, maybe it says bath, then says won't do it again. This is almost entirely redacted. Then it says something 200, J.E. paid 200, redacted. We know that Jeffrey Epstein paid $200 repeatedly to victims to massage him. He asked her to. I can only wonder what he asked her to do. Redacted, redacted. Somebody didn't like redacted. Still redacting lots of things. Redacting lots of people. Certainly hiding lots of people. Cell H, maybe this says. Maybe it says call H. All of these are redacted. This looks like it says, went to Jeffrey Epstein. Redacted, redacted. Given to me from cell. This next file is pretty mysterious. We can only wonder what it means. As you see, everything is redacted up here. Down here it says, did Special Agent blank tell you that I called and spoke to him during the time that you were out of the office, regarding a car that was sitting at the park watching my house? If you have any questions, please feel free to contact me at blank. So, whoever this is, somebody was watching their house, and they're talking to a special agent. This says, check to see. How old are you? 18. I know you're not 18. Probably Jeffrey talking. Once she got to house, told blank blank 300. First visit, asked for something. J.E. asked for phone number. In bathroom, and it seems like she's just saying that she left her phone number for Jeffrey Epstein in the bathroom. J.E. called something. They something something Friday can you. R say to something bathroom, or maybe this says respect. Always set up something. PBI JFK. Hopefully this is referring to JFK the airport and not the person. That would be very concerning. Something something on Jeffrey Epstein something. Sex blank something. I can only imagine what this says. I cannot decipher this. Here we finally have some good handwriting. When they would leave sometimes, here it says always, they would pre-something when they were coming back. Blank blank asked, but they would still call before they arrived, and she responded sometimes. It seems like they got the dumbest special agent with the worst handwriting to do all of these notes. None of this makes any sense, and half of it is unlegible. Here we have a date, then more redacted. Help PM redacted. Holiday break Xmas. Jeffrey Epstein purchased tickets to blank. Blank picked her up. Bottle of champagne at schools. Redacted, knew redacted about it. Talked at something to help at school. Jeffrey Epstein idea. Bathroom and residence later. Office. Limo. This seems to be referring to Annie Farmer. Annie Farmer was recruited by Jeffrey Epstein. She was in school at the time, and he took her to the movie theater, and she also mentioned his bathroom. So this seems to be referring to Annie Farmer. This says uncomfortable. Annie Farmer stated feeling uncomfortable. Don't worry about school. They get the he would pay. Talk to redacted with redacted. Number from redacted. Plans for summer. Bought a ticket. They paid for it. Redacted. Someone picked her up she did not know. Friday through Sunday. Some discussion about where she was going to be staying. Jeffrey Epstein said she will be staying with us. It seems like the only name not redacted in this is Jeffrey Epstein. Bought popcorn /Cokes. seeing them again, doing the trip, etc. Did not want to mess up things for herself and or redacted. Again, this seems to be Annie Farmer, who is a public victim of his, who he took to the movie theaters. Something before Xmas, something prior to flying to New Mexico. So, as we know, Jeffrey Epstein had a ranch in New Mexico. Gave redacted, redacted, redacted. Redacted, 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 redacted. Redacted, redacted. Had something, lunch, purchased tickets, blank, introduced blank. Jeffrey Epstein asked blank to his office, and this is an initial, so this must be somebody big, across the street from limo. Something maybe this is dumped, up. Jeffrey Epstein had a surprise. I can only wonder what surprises Jeffrey Epstein had. Told her they went to come to her house. Wow, you're really beautiful. What a great compliment from registered sex offender Jeffrey Epstein. Would you like to do a redacted, redacted? I can only imagine what convicted sex offender Jeffrey Epstein is asking her to do. You really shouldn't tell her to give redacted, 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 redacted. I can only wonder what convicted sex offender Jeffrey Epstein is asking her to give. Jeffrey Epstein, my something said she would give you a massage at her residence. I something redacted, I redacted. Redacted, I really wish you would. Something redacted, a nude with redacted on redacted, redacted, something, something. I can only imagine what activities they were doing nude with convicted sex offender Jeffrey Epstein. Rumor is Jeffrey Epstein is gay. I didn't say it. You say on the phone, listen, call me if redacted. Jeffrey, where in the hell are these redacted? Jeffrey Epstein put redacted on the phone. Something it them, redacted, redacted. There's a recurring theme that lots of people who are in contact with Jeffrey Epstein are redacted. Asked if redacted could come stay with over summer. Redacted not allowed to come outside. Redacted paranoid. This looks like it says ZRO maybe came to visit. We know there is somebody named Zorro he is friends with. Second visit, totally inappropriate. Locked door at, maybe this says height, in here, blank. Jeffrey came in wearing boxers. I can only imagine what was happening for convicted sex offender Jeffrey Epstein to come in wearing boxers. About an hour it lasted. How am I gay? This clearly says raped and is scribbled out. I can only imagine why this is in the files of convicted sex offender Jeffrey Epstein. Now we have a word that starts with a P and has two S's in it. Not allowed to come something. People came to rent young women. Regardless of what this says, I can only imagine what he means by young women when discussing convicted sex offender Jeffrey Epstein. Met with one guy, he was testifying at same time. No practice, no review, something statement, did not hear prior, don't know what this says. That lady makes me nervous. I don't hang out with him. Just say hi plus staff. Don't even talk about something. They went to bathroom, argued. He told her, poor gas driver guy, get into plus become rich. Really redacted plus pretty. What's a month? Maybe this is what's a matter. You can say no. Jeffrey Epstein, will you do this? You can say no. I don't think with convicted sex offender Jeffrey Epstein, you can say no. So these are the end of the agent notes. There's still more, but these are just all the agents wrote. We don't know what they're specifically about. We know some is about Annie Farmer. We have some semblance of ideas, but nothing concrete that we can share. So if you have any idea, please comment down below and get this discussion started. Here we have something talking between the FBI. Looks like witness statement, maybe. Here we have the details. They're talking with somebody about Jeffrey Epstein. Writer placed telephone call to redacted, indicated she is willing to cooperate fully with any FBI investigation involving Jeffrey Epstein and others. Make note that it says, and others. We do not see any others anywhere. redacted, protected identity, and writer met for the interview at United States Attorney's Office in Fort Lauderdale, Florida. Part 20 and 21 were completely useless, just subpoenas and other redacted things. Part 22 is just the Jeffrey Epstein court case, but it's shocking enough that we should still go through it. While Jane Doe number 4 and I were in the lobby of 350 Australian Avenue South at approximately 1 p.m. for her deposition on September 16, 2009, we crossed paths with Jeffrey Epstein and someone who appeared to be his bodyguard. Jeffrey Epstein stopped walking and began to stare at and intimidate Jane Doe number 4. Jane Doe number 4 was terrified, began crying, and ran outside the building. Jeffrey Epstein smirked at her and walked away. As a result of this incident, Jane Doe began crying uncontrollably and was unable to proceed with her deposition. So, as per doctor opinion, this quick glance shouldn't have caused such emotional distress. What doctor is like, yeah, I know he sexually assaulted you and all, and you were a child, but him staring at you and intimidating you shouldn't cause you emotional distress? Very, very smart doctor, it seems. Perhaps a doctor working for convicted sex offender Jeffrey Epstein. So, it seems like Jane Doe has had a horribly traumatic life. She sought counseling due to dysfunctional home situations, specifically with regard to her father. She described herself as being angry, bitter, and depressed and having body image problems. She had an ex-boyfriend who was, on information and belief, a drug dealer who she lived with. She had drug and alcohol problems herself and spoke with 2 psychiatrists when she was 16 or 17 before this lawsuit and did not reference Epstein but did reference her boyfriend and family issues. There are police reports that reflect that a battery report was filed regarding Jane Doe number 4 in Vineyard based on an argument where he grabbed her by the neck and began spitting on her and calling her a cheater. There was also a domestic violence file opened where Vineyard was physically and verbally abusive to Jane Doe number 4, his girlfriend at the time. There is reference that the two started a serious relationship in 2002 when she was only 14 years old. Vineyard was arrested in December 2003 and charged with reckless driving and leaving the scene of the accident with Jane Doe number 4 when their vehicle hit a tree and they fled. Here we have an email from the prosecution showing that Jeffrey Epstein will not attend tomorrow's deposition because of the absence of a court order. Jeffrey Epstein and 2 witnesses state that he did not interact with Jane Doe 4 at all. Conveniently, what they would say. So these 2 were in the court building. Jeffrey Epstein is leaving the court building to go attend the deposition via Skype because he is not allowed to attend. And as they are leaving, they supposedly cross paths. He says he quickly glanced and saw her from behind and immediately exited. Obviously, they say that he stared her down and intimidated her and made her cry. Of course, there's video evidence, but it's not stated what it shows. So those are all of the files from FBI.gov. Doesn't seem like much. Seems like they redacted basically everything. But there are more. Just wait. So now we're going to move on to part 2. We're going to be covering the files released by the House of Representatives in late November. These are about 20,000 files of the overall 25,000 from before when the Department of Justice released their files. Now this took outrageously long for us to go through. It's 20,000 files, but we went through every bit of it for y'all. Many of this is redacted, and a lot of it is stuff like entire books. So we're obviously not going to show every single page of all of the books he has. There are some that are very sexual in nature, and there are others that are just simply financial. But we implore you to do your own research. Here we see them interviewing one of the victims about a MySpace account in court. She is underage dating a 22-year-old firefighter named Brett. Epstein's lawyers are interrogating her about her father who's been arrested for fraud in the past, potentially trying to steal her lawsuit money. Her dad is the one who filed the lawsuit, and she thinks her parents are trying to take advantage of the lawsuit too. Next is a sworn statement of redacted person. Well, she told me that I could go over there and give him a massage. Okay. And he'd pay me for it, and that he was a respectful guy. Clearly here they're talking about Epstein. What did she tell you? She told me to say I was 18 if it was asked. She just said that if anyone asked, you should say that you were 18 years of age. These following pages, all they show is that she was saying that she wasn't coerced. This document here only shows that Epstein and all of his associates and employees were represented by lawyers paid for by Epstein, and every single one of them pleaded the fifth instead of to talk. Here is a quote from Donald Trump saying, "I've known Jeff for 15 years. Terrific guy." Wonderful thing to say about convicted sex offender Jeffrey Epstein. So as we see here, he's flying people like Bill Clinton and Donald Trump and Les Wexner and Kevin Spacey. He flew lots of rich and powerful people, as we know, on his plane, but these are still influential, powerful people today. So next to all of these names, there's still redacted names. Who are they still hiding? Who are they hiding in these files from a convicted sex offender that they were forced to release by law? Next after this, there's just multiple books, 200 pages, 300 pages, just multiple books, end to end. Next, we see them interviewing Virginia Roberts, one of the most prominent victims of Epstein. When you say that the room was hidden, Virginia, how was the room concealed? It wasn't like a door that you would normally go into, like some kind of special opening you open and then a little door. So it looks like it's a little closet, so to speak, but when you walk in there, it's obviously a lot bigger than just a closet. It wasn't too big, but it was bigger, you know? It wasn't a gigantic room, it was just like a small room, which, you know, it could probably fit some shoes in there. It had racks of shoes, boxes, some sweatshirts neatly folded, and the ceiling to the floor was covered in pornographic pictures of girls that he had met. So here he's showing a 15-year-old girl his secret hidden room of all of the other children that he has met. This is a person whose house that presidents and very influential people have been to. Famous actors, other famous politicians that are not presidents. This is a very influential guy with a lot of connections to people that are still prominent today. So if this is what she's seen, imagine what they have seen just being at his house. Now imagine on his plane, or going to his private parties. So one of his colleagues would be at the Caribbean or Santa Fe, or even New York, or wherever, and he would call me up on those days where I'm not working with him or in Palm Beach with him, and he would ask me to get on the next plane, and so on, and go meet and so. And that's when I would take e-tickets. His secretary or special assistant, whatever, would organize it for me and give me the details, and I would just walk up in the line and they'd let me right through. So here she's talking about his colleagues, and she would get notified to go meet these colleagues. Clearly, he's doing something with these colleagues that involves sending them a 15-year-old girl. Remember who his colleagues are. So routinely these massages involved sexual activity. Is that accurate? That is accurate. Okay, let's talk about the travel that you were involved in when you were on Jeffrey's private plane. Generally speaking, who were the passengers on the plane when you traveled? Well, Larry was the pilot, and then there was a short, small, solid guy. I don't know his name, but he was a co-pilot. And then he changed and there was another guy brought in later on. Generally speaking, there was always Jeffrey, sometimes Jelaine, sometimes Emmy, sometimes a whole bunch of other girls, sometimes famous people, sometimes some politicians, or yeah, just about anybody could fly on his plane. There was never any set routine who would come and who would go. It was an influx of people on Jeffrey's airplane. So here, one of his most prominent victims, who is a 15-year-old girl at the time, is talking about politicians and famous people being on the plane with her. Okay, there was Naomi Campbell, Heidi Klum, there was Bill Clinton, there was Al Gore, there was Al Gore, there was a whole bunch of models. I wouldn't really honestly be able to give their names. There was Matt Groening, the producer of the Simpsons cartoon, Jack Cousteau's granddaughter, and a lot of interior designers, architects, politicians. Maybe this is why the Simpsons fell off? What instructions were you given about what to look for? Young, pretty, you know, a fun personality. They couldn't be black. Couldn't be black? Okay, I can excuse everything else he's done. Like everything else. But this is where I draw the line. Okay, what I want you to do is give me the highest number that you are comfortable in saying there were definitely more than X number of underage girls that I know Jeffrey Epstein engaged in blank with while I had a relationship with him. How would you fill in that blank? Definitely more than how many? I'd say definitely more than 100. Yes, he did it all the time. The worst one I heard from his own mouth was pretty 12-year-old girls he had flown in for his birthday. It was a surprise birthday gift from one of his friends, and they were from France. I did see them. I did meet them. Jeffrey bragged afterwards after he met them that they were 12-year-olds and flown over from France because they're really poor over there and their parents needed the money. So he has clients sending him 12-year-old girls. Remember that they said there was no client list. It's been 6 years. 7 years. I really want to emphasize this next line. Just really let this hit. Really pay attention to what's being said. And I was getting older and not of as much interest to Jeffrey anyways. I was 19 now, and he likes a female a lot younger. Anyways, District Attorney's Office initially sought lenient treatment of billionaire financier and convicted pedophile Jeffrey Epstein. In 2008, Jeffrey pled guilty to soliciting a prostitution from a minor, but there has been suspicion since that time, voiced by members of the judiciary and the press alike, that prosecutors gave Epstein preferential treatment because of his wealth and his political connections to powerful men like Donald Trump, Bill Clinton, and Prince Andrew. The handling of criminal procedures against Epstein by federal prosecutors in Florida and thereafter by the Manhattan District Attorney's Office has come under renewed scrutiny after the Miami Herald published a series of investigative articles beginning November 28, 2018, including an article reporting recently that prosecutors worked to cut him a break, despite strong evidence that he had abused 80 girls and young women. Here we have an email from Jeffrey Epstein. You can see the subject says, "The new iterations of Ghislaine Maxwell. The allegation was not at a pedophile party. It was at my house with me." The dude who sent this email is dead, by the way. This email from the Prime Minister of Norway to convicted sex offender Jeffrey Epstein says, "Is it possible for you to pass by Strasbourg? It would be great. I really need to understand more about Trump and what's going on in the American society." This email from professor at Arizona State University, "Sorry, all show. He is a fucking showman, a carnival huckster. This and the military budget and healthcare are all show, no substance. Just the biggest ever for a guy with small hands." This is talking about a rocket project with Trump. Here we have a list of names. Key ones are Prince Andrew, 4 princesses, Bill Clinton, Donald Trump, Governor Mapp, Governor Young, Governor King, Woody Allen, Morgan Fairchild, Rothschild, Hillis, Larry Summers, Woody Allen again. Apparently Woody Allen was so good they had to put him twice. Yes, this is the same Woody Allen that was in a relationship with his adopted stepdaughter. To Jeffrey Epstein, "I'm at the door, but I will wait for my time. I don't want to come early to find Trump in your house." This is in 2017, well after he was a convicted sex offender, and well after Trump said he cut ties with him. "I want you to realize that the dog that hasn't barked is Trump. Victim name spent hours at my house with him. He has never once been mentioned. Victim name Mar-a-Lago, redacted. Trump said he asked me to resign. Never a member ever. Of course he knew about the girls. He asked Ghislaine to stop. I hear CNN planning to ask Trump tonight about his relationship with you, either on air or in scrum afterwards. I think you should let him hang himself. If he says he hasn't been on the plane or to the house, then that gives you a valuable PR and political currency. You can hang him in a way that potentially generates a positive benefit for you, or if it really looks like he could win, talking about the election, you could save him, generating a debt. Of course it is possible that when asked, he'll say Jeffrey is a great guy and has gotten a raw deal and is a victim of political correctness, which is to be outlawed in a Trump regime. Ask him if Putin has the photos of Trump blowing Bubba. Bubba is the name of Ghislaine Maxwell's horse, as well as Bill Clinton's nickname. Recall when we saw Jeffrey Epstein is gay circled. From Jeffrey Epstein to Larry Summers. Recall I've told you, I have met some very bad people, none as bad as Trump. Not one decent cell in his body. So yes, dangerous. Reminder that this is not politically motivated, this is unbiased. I do not align with any political party, neither does the Buckified YouTube channel. This obviously does not affect just one side of the political spectrum, this affects both sides. This affects both parties. Trump just happened to be the one that was such a close friend of him. It will all blow over. They're really just trying to take down Trump and doing whatever they can to do that. It's wild, because I am the one able to take him down. Here we have the infamous photo of Bubba, aka Bill Clinton, in a dress. Yes, this really was in the files. This really is in his house. Next, we're going to move on to the new documents released by the Department of Justice today at the time of recording. We scanned through all of this to make sure that y'all can get the unbiased, uncensored information. We can't show some things or the video will get taken down by YouTube. There's just no other way around it. So part 1 is pictures from the Jeffrey Epstein estate. They were at his house and they took pictures of everything. Okay, so this next one is not edited. We did not put this in here. This is legitimately from the documents. This is a shirt that says Israel Defense Forces, aka the IDF. It has been a quote-unquote conspiracy theory that Jeffrey Epstein has ties to Mossad or to Israel. We're not saying that he has ties, but this is clearly an IDF shirt at his estate. As you see here, there is candy in his office. Shocking that a known child molester has candy sitting in his office. Here we have a sundial on his island, and here's some odd-looking statues. It's unfortunate that this is the house of a registered sex offender because this looks amazing. Here we have the infamous photo of the island of Little St. James. This is the mysterious room. Now, inside it just seemed to be under construction, so maybe not an elevator like the conspiracy theories say, maybe edited. That's for you to decide. Here we have what is clearly children's clothing. That's all I'm going to say. This is disgusting. Here we have maps of the island itself. Numerous redacted photos of Jeffrey Epstein and other people with girls. Now here we finally see where the photo of Bill Clinton in the dress is at in his house. It just seems to be in a closet. Odd place for a picture of Bubba. Here we have numerous photos of people with unredacted faces. We choose to not blur this because this is public information, and these people are in the Epstein Files. There are some people whose faces are redacted, but these are specifically left unredacted. Here we have Jeffrey Epstein shirtless next to what is clearly a little girl wearing Crocs. Here we have Jeffrey Epstein being very, as the kids say, kawaii, looking at a dog. Here we have a photo of a man in drag smoking what appears to be either a cigarette or a joint, with people watching and recording. I didn't say it. Here we have Bill Clinton and another person next to a redacted woman. Bill Clinton and various other people. Bill Clinton with his flight attendants. Bill Clinton with another woman. Next we have Bill Clinton in a hot tub next to another unredacted woman. Next we are going to read what we believe and what appears to be a victim's journal. Spent most time growing up in Santa Cruz Mountains, California. Moved around a lot. Sophomore year, I don't think finished 4-diff year high school at 2 different high school in 2 years. Redacted high school. I just turned 16 when I moved to LA on my own. Life at home, not the best. Got a job at hair salon as receptionist. First moved there, moved in with Sis. Sis left. Native American spiritual healer. Let me stay with him. Malibu to Beverly Hills. First impression was really good. Does body work, massage therapy. He worked on me. Made me feel comfortable. He has 4 kids younger than me. Single father. I work as bartender. Have 3 kids. 9, 6, 7. My sis introduced Epstein through Redacted. She traveled with him. My sis and I had an apartment together. Enjoying Hollywood, she moved back to the city after met Redacted. Heard positive things about Jeffrey Epstein. I was very skeptical. I thought he had ulterior motives. Didn't think someone would be this nice. My sis knew Jeffrey Epstein for a couple of months. He was coming to California. She took me to his PM. She introduced me to him. He showed a lot of interest in my life, my upbringing. He kept in touch, offered to pay for school. He would call me or have his assistant call me. I told him I'd been homeless. He suggested hair school. I want to learn languages and to travel. He said anywhere I want to go. 17 when met him. Kept touch via phone. He invited me to one of houses with my sis. Went to a few. Here it shows different locations of his houses. Florida, U.S. Virgin Islands, New Mexico I believe as well. Before left for Spain. Being overwhelmed with houses. Luxury lifestyle. More I'd ever seen. He was fun and lighthearted. Activities, trails, ride Hummers. I was very comfortable with him. Felt blessed and safe. First visit he called me in to do a massage. There he put me in a very uncomfortable situation. Redacted and myself massaging him, he started Redacted. Asked her to take off shirt. Remember feeling not knowing how to get out of it. I froze. Didn't know how to react. Felt very vulnerable. I gave up my job and apartment. Where was I going to go? We were wearing bathing suits. I don't want to go into detail. Go back and forth to his houses. I was primarily living in LA for a few months. Went in January 2003. Turned 18 in Spain 4 months. He sent me to Spain. He paid for everything. Redacted in his office. She helped me arrange it all. He knew how old I was. I lived with him everywhere. Went New York. Redacted and me had an apartment in New York. Summoned us to house to go shopping or anything. He had multiple apartments there. Different people lived there. We were very close. Good friends. My best friend. She was very sweet and quiet. I understood that she was her girlfriend. It seemed that. No one ever spoke about relationship with Jeffrey. When I tried to open up to her about my assaults, she didn't relate. Bit standoffish. She wasn't very friendly. His assistant, plane departure, scheduling, all went through her and Ghislaine. Redacted touched me during a bath. Clearly, since Jeffrey and Ghislaine were not redacted, somebody other than these two, who the government is choosing to protect, touched her. There were a lot of different people my age. Some come and stay for days. Some in and out within a couple hours. 4 assaults before 18. Paris, New Mexico, Florida. 2 of the assaults were rapes. Snuck into me while sleeping. That's not fun. Jeffrey Epstein believes monogamous way of life is not the way to live. It's not healthy to be in a monogamous relationship. Idea is to build harem. Went to Spain together to learn to build this. I trusted him a lot and believed a lot of what he said. It was all mind control. He asked me once, very random question, if I thought it was wrong for a redacted. I said I think that's wrong. I don't believe monogamous relationships are wrong. I have one. I'm doing great. Here we have an extreme amount of people that are redacted. Clearly these are all people who are below 18 and went to see Jeffrey Epstein, except for these 2 redacted people. At one point, redacted witnessed him asking for something to girl. He wanted to make sure they were under 18 because he wasn't believing them because somebody messed up by bringing more older girls. That's not fun to read. Here we have numerous photos of Jeffrey Epstein with redacted girls. There's tons of photos like this in here. It just goes on and on and on. I'm not even going to read this. Just go ahead and react to this yourself. I'll give you a second. "17th? So that was my first time seeing this too. Our other channel member created this part. That was not fun. I experienced that with y'all. That was disgusting. As you can see, it said Andrew in there somewhere. Probably Prince Andrew. Not going to be too speculative. Pretty fair to say, I think. The rest of this is just going to be legal documents, and then, as you see here, massage for dummies. Shocking for a man who loves massages. From little girls. Well, so that's it. We went through every single Jeffrey Epstein file. This is all of the notable stuff we could find. We're bound to have missed some things, but we went through all of it. This is just the stuff that we felt was impactful enough to share. They clearly removed so much stuff, but we gave y'all stuff from the hard drives. We gave y'all stuff from everything that is publicly available. And we hope y'all enjoyed the video. As always, leave a like and a comment down below. We left all of our sources in the description. We implore you to do your own research and to look at this yourself and to not take anything you hear without a grain of salt. This is Buckified, signing out. And don't forget, subscribe.